Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the RepPath podcast. Today we're going to talk about CRM. And for some of you out there, what is CRM? We're going to go over that, but how it's very, very important, not only in your medical sales role, but also during the interview process. And before we discuss that, guys, as always, some quick housekeeping. Any questions that you have during this podcast, make sure you put them into the chat and we'll address them about halfway through the show. If you want to get this copy or any other information that we post, any content, please make sure you join my YouTube channel, the RepPath Academy. So please just click the link below and subscribe. It's 100% free, and you'll be able to get the podcast that we present and including additional content. Lastly, guys, please get on the RepPath.com website. If you guys are still struggling, if you have questions trying to get through this very, very difficult process of breaking into medical sales, the RepPath Academy is the solution, guys. We are helping students break in every day. We got students from all around the country, everyone working together to help, going over different interview challenges, different resume challenges. You get to work with me, my team, but also the other individuals that are working together that are part of the RepPath community. Everyone works together, guys, to help everyone hit their goals. We're not competing against each other. We're working with each other to help get those goals. So go on RepPath.com, shoot me a DM, any information you need, reach out right away, and we can help you become, a student immediately with the RepPath Academy. All right, so enough housekeeping. We're going to dive right in to CRM. Guys, CRM, very, very important. Let me just define it for a lot of you guys out there that don't really understand what CRM stands for, and it's Customer Relationship Management. So a lot of you might hear of Salesforce. That's probably one of the most popular CRM tools out there. When I first started in the industry at Organon, we had Salesforce, and I didn't know any better. I just knew, okay, here's my admin site. That's the way I looked at it. This is where I have to do all my annoying bullshit admin. And I hated it. Okay. So for some of you that aren't familiar with Salesforce and you're not in the medical field, in regards to pharmaceutical sales, this is where you would go first and foremost to get all your data. So if you wanted to see if Dr. Jones, how many prescriptions he prescribed, not only of your product, but also of the competition, all that information, all the prescription data would be in there. And that I always thought was a very vital part of, a vital tool, because you could see if you're growing, if you're dropping, which physicians, are they currently using your product? What are they currently using? And then you would, take that information to develop a sales plan to go into those offices. And that part I found valuable. And then the part that I didn't find valuable was entering in call notes. Now, for instance, that's something as a sales rep, you're like, oh, this sucks. I know what I talk about with my doctors. I don't need to enter this shit in. It's a waste of time. It's for the company to track us, to see where we are every day. Now, while some of that is true, for the most part, guys, I was totally, misguided, or I just had the wrong approach when it came to CRM. And then the older I got, and especially when I started to do better in subsequent roles, because of the CRM and because of the data I'm entering, and especially now having your own business, if you don't have a system set up, you're only going to fail. So the first point I want to make, guys, I understand what a lot of you are going through out there. I know what it's like when you're using a CRM and you're like, oh, this is annoying bullshit that I don't want to do. I hate entering in this info. Nobody cares. I could put in anything. It doesn't mean anything. Guys, it does. It is extremely important. And if you use it right, you will succeed. You will do better in your role. If you don't give it the time and attention that it needs, it's going to come back to bite you. And we're going to talk about that. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how this can be used during the interview process, because a lot of you are not doing it and you're missing a great opportunity to impress these hiring managers. So let's start off. So what is CRM in medical sales? Now, we talked about the definition. It's customer relationship management. All right. But what does that mean? So this is a structured system to help you track your accounts. It's it's your database of stakeholder intelligence. It's a forecasting engine. It's a record for compliance. It's a territory planning tool. And it's also overall, it's just your professional memory. Okay. So the CRM guys don't view it as an optional tool. It's a must. Okay. Because you're going to have so many relationships. The busier you get, the more complex that environment gets, especially when you get into hospital sales and you're dealing with multiple decision makers or just multiple layers to get a product approved or utilized. If you're not utilizing your CRM and entering all this data in, you're going to fail. That's simple. Okay. Don't be stubborn and think, I'll remember the conversations. I'll just put notes in just to make my manager happy. No, guys, really embrace this. Because just to go over some of these things, structured system for tracking accounts. I mean, guys, when you start out, you have no accounts. You get excited when a doctor even wants to set up a lunch with you. Believe me, I've been there. But now after you get 6, 8, 9, 10 months, a year, 2 years, you're going to develop a large database of users, of customers, and you're going to need all that information stored. And the more that you put in, the more that you're going to get out of it. So it might seem a little useless at the beginning, but trust me, over time, you're going to develop a large database that you're going to need all that information tracked and organized in one spot. So that's why that's important. When we talk about forecasting, incredibly important and required by many, many medical companies. They're always going to ask you, at the beginning of the quarter, this is something at Boston Scientific. We'd have quarterly reviews. You would go over what was working and what wasn't. What were some of the challenges and opportunities that you had? Who are some of your key decision makers that are using your product? Who are you still working on? And if you don't have all this, you cannot have an accurate forecast. If you're not entering in all the data, how are you going to know where you're going forward? And a lot of times reps that didn't do it well, they would just give an estimate. If they did, 100,000 this quarter or 1 million this quarter, they'd add 5 or 10%, just to be optimistic. And it's like, guys, if you don't have the data to support it and exactly show how you're getting to that number and break everything down, what your plan is, based on the metrics, you're not only you're not going to continue to succeed. It's just very hard to do so, but you also make yourself look disorganized in front of your manager. So you don't want that. So it's very important that you're having all this to develop a strong pipeline. Compliance records. Again, guys, you never know. I've been in some crazy situations throughout my career that majority of the time it has nothing to do with me. But if you're taking good notes, you're entering your calls in at the right time and just treating this, giving this the attention that it needs, you never know when there's any kind of compliance questions or issues that come up that your CRM can actually save you and save your job. You don't know, guys. So it's very important that you're inputting it because you never know when there's a compliance issue that could be thrown in your lap. And the more info you have in there, the better that it's going to serve you. And then lastly, territory planning tool. Guys, so important. I mean, how could you plan your future if you don't know where you were? It's almost impossible, guys. So you need to be implanting that to develop territory routing. Again, if I know that a doctor is, for instance, on the pharmaceutical side, you could see that their scripts are either rising or dropping, month to month. You're not going to remember that every month. So you can go to the data and then be able to understand, oh, I forgot he was out 2 weeks this month. That's why he's dropping. Or sometimes it doesn't make sense. Why is this doctor all of a sudden just using, competitor B's products and I just lost 20% market share? You have to have all this data and be able to analyze this of what's going on. Were they a part of a trial? Because I've had that where a doctor that was great relationship with me, if I wasn't using my CRM, I would think everything's fine. All of a sudden, he dropped almost 50%. He was using the competitor's product. And I found out, after going and speaking to him, like, hey, what's going on? He was doing a trial with them, and it would only lasted a couple months. Thank God he's still, with between the success of my product and the effort that I was giving, that it was a short blip before, he came back 100%. But if I don't have this info and I'm not analyzing this, not utilizing my CRM properly, I would never know what the heck's going on. And even worse, I'm not going to be able to explain it to my hiring manager. So if you don't know what's going on, that's a red flag. That means you got to figure stuff out. But if you're not utilizing your CRM, you're never going to be able to do that. Okay. So we talked about this a little bit, why CRM is critical in medical sales. Again, you have multiple stakeholders. You're going to be dealing something in the hospital space, physicians, nurses, VPs, CFOs, CEOs, admin, tech support, biomed. I mean, there's so many different individuals that can be involved. If you are entering everything in, it's going to help you organize all those players. It's not just like in the office-based world where you're just calling on one doctor. Okay. Even in that space, excuse me, the high performers are entering in the staff. So basically, just look at it this way, guys. If someone was going to take over for you, or if someone was substituting for you that day, if your manager had to cover your accounts because you're away for a week, can they go in and utilize your CRM and be able to be guide it in the right direction? Or are they going to be, it's going to be like the blind leading the blind without any information? They don't know what to do. They could walk into an office. I used to keep call notes on all the staff members, what they look like when you walk in. I mean, I made sure that I had everything in my CRM because I looked at it that way. If my manager walked in there, could my manager know that Susan is the receptionist? She's tall, blonde, whatever descriptors you want to give. Bob wears glasses. He's the office manager. Everything, the more information, the better. So you want to get that in there to prevent the confusion when you're dealing with multiple stakeholders in an account. Excuse me. What happens when you have an evaluation? And this happens a lot in medical sales. A lot of times you don't just come in there and you go, hey, why don't you use my product? Sure, Joe, sounds great. I'm going to use it for the next 20 patients. No. A lot of times they'll say, hey, where's the data? Well, we don't really have much data yet. Well, I got to do an evaluation. Or they don't care how much data you have. We still have to evaluate it at our hospital. So I learned this the hard way too, guys. I had people just try it out and then give me their anecdotal, responses. Tell me what you think. Oh, Joe, it's great. Oh, Joe, it's great. Oh, Joe, it's great. Meanwhile, I'm not tracking anything. So then when it comes to us looking to push for an approval for their VAC committee, now I have no information. I have nothing to go on. Not only could a CRM help you create evaluation forms too, but it could store all the info. So you have the evaluation form from Dr. Jones, from Dr. Wilson, from Dr. Smith. They're inputting all this info. So then when you're ready to present, when it's in front of the VAC committee and they need that validation, you have all that information. You have it in your notes. You have all the records. So important, guys, because these are long sales process sometimes. And if you're not tracking all this in your CRM, you're going to fail. You're going to miss points. It's not even a good to use. It's a must use at all times. Same with clinical trials, like we talked about too. We're talking about hospital committees, multiple layers, they're all going to need this information. So the more you put in, the better. And then we talked about documentation. Next. So we covered all those points, but now what about a lot of you out there talk about, I want to get promoted. Okay. We're going to go backwards to the interview process, but a lot of you in medical sales positions, you want to get promoted. So numbers are key. Okay. I'm going to be a high performer, or I am a high performer. I've been ranked President's Club, 3 years in a row. And for some reason, it doesn't seem like I get any looks, whenever there's any openings around the country to be a district manager or a regional sales manager, and a lot of times, guys, CRM is the factor that prevents you from moving forward. We all know those reps, the one stud rep, he does his numbers, he always blows it out of the water. But he's just never even thought about for a promotion. And a lot of times, guys, it's because this individual is a dumpster fire when it comes to admin. It's a dumpster fire when it comes to organization. Now, it's very hard to promote an individual like that because now while they're a great rep, that means now they're not just worrying about themselves anymore. They got to worry about 10 or 12 or 15 other people and make sure they're organized. And if you're not doing it yourself, how can you lead a team? Okay. So a lot of times when you're getting passed over and your numbers are good, you got good relationships. I guarantee one of the things that it's standing out is that your CRM is not organized. You're not entering it in. It's not airtight. And then you could see another individual that gets a promotion that's not ranked as high. Because at the end of the day, guys, not all great reps make great managers. It's the same thing in sports. A lot of times the great athletes don't become the great coaches. I mean, look at one of the best coaches, and I'm not even a Patriots fan. I know he just got screwed. I know it's going to piss you off, James, and I'm kind of saying this on purpose.
I'm glad he got screwed.
Yeah, well, hey, but you wouldn't argue, is Bill Belichick one of the best coaches of all time?
Probably the best coach of all time, and it pains me to say that, but I'm still glad he got screwed. Fuck that guy.
As far as I know, did he play pro football? Because if he did, I don't remember him.
No, I don't think so. And his son is a coach too.
Yeah, there you go. One of the best coaches. I have a buddy in college, Jed Fish. He's a Washington coach. He's coached at the pro level, coached at multiple, at multiple collegiate, top programs from UCLA to Arizona. And now he's at Washington. He's one of the top college coaches. Jed never played a down of football in his life, but he was just brilliant at knowing the game and knowing what it takes to win. And that's why he's been so successful. Same thing with reps moving on to management. Sometimes it's not the big sales rep that does well, but just like Jed and everyone else that has done really well, these are individuals that are organized. They have a game plan. They have a strategy, and without that, you can't be successful in medical sales without your CRM, because that is the strategy. That's what helps you get you there. It's going to make you organized. It's going to show your strategic thinking, your forecasting, and then your leadership, just showing your leadership skills. That's all going to be shown if you keep that airtight, and it's going to help you to advance in your career. Okay. When you're having a shitty quarter, guys, one simple fallback, having a shitty day, a shitty week, whatever, go into your CRM, go in at night, get it organized. There's always stuff. It's like, it's doing spring cleaning. It's same thing, clean out your garage, clean up your apartment, whatever it is, clean out your CRM, make sure it's organized, make sure all the data, all the notes are up to date, because I know a lot of times I would look back, I'm like, oh shit, I haven't updated this in a couple months. I keep putting the same note just to appease my manager. And you're like, why are you doing that? So make sure it's organized. It's going to help you in your career, because all individuals, all candidates that are up for promotion, I guarantee you one of the things that they have, that the one common denominator, is a very organized and updated CRM. Now let's talk about this during the interview process. Why is this important? Okay. So a lot of you say that, especially at the academy, there's a lot of individuals that have no sales experience, or I get hit up by individuals. Yeah, Joe, I don't have any sales experience. Well, show me something that you're measuring to show results. Well, my job doesn't really do that. I don't do that. My company doesn't do that. In my position, they don't really track results. Okay. Now, for all you out there, I call bullshit if you can tell me, if you say that to me, that what I'm doing now does not show results. There's one simple thing that everyone in the interview process can do today, and I want you all to do this, because it's going to impress the hiring managers when you start tracking this. Start tracking your interview process. It's that simple, guys. Create your own CRM. What do you mean, Joe? I can't create a CRM. I have no clue. I don't know how to make another Salesforce. I'm not saying that. Guys, a CRM could be an Excel spreadsheet. That's simple. Okay. Put down the companies that you've interviewed, that you applied to, mention the part in the process that you're in. Are you just taking did you just send your resume and you haven't heard back, or you just got your first HR interview scheduled, or you have some sort of screening set up with a recruiter, or are you in the final stages? Did you get a job offer? Track all this. How many companies did you reach out to? Most of you I ask, and you'll say a ton, or a bunch, or a few. No one actually has the number. Excuse me. No one actually says I applied to 15 companies last week. I had 2 interviews. I'm in the final stages of 1. I had 4, I spoke to 4 reps. Like all that information, get it into that spreadsheet. Talk about that in the interview. Say, this is one of the things that you do. You created your own CRM. Guys, you know how excited a hiring manager will get to show that level of organization? They will love that, especially if you come from a different field. I mean, imagine you're a waiter, or say you're a biomed guy. I don't know, anything. It could be anything. Say you're a lawyer, a teacher, you're working as a personal trainer, as a coach, but you're showing that level of attention to your CRM, that you're creating it. So don't tell me your company doesn't have a CRM. Doesn't matter. You could create your own Excel spreadsheet, which is your CRM, during the interview process. Put all that information in and talk about that with the hiring manager. It's going to blow his mind. Talk about that when you're speaking to reps, when you're talking about the CRM. Show your level of organization to them. Guys, this all helps. So you got to make sure you're doing that. So some of the things that we're going to track in there, obviously the company name, what company you're interviewing with, excuse me, what are the products? That's key. Have another section for the competition. Who are your top 3 competitors and their products? Okay. You can even put in, some of the key reasons, what's the value add that your product is bringing versus the other products? What are some of the common objections that you're getting? All these things, or what are the common objections that they give, that they give those employees? What are our doctors saying when they object? You could put those questions down. And then some of the territory details and market focus, you could add like a notes section. But all these things are very important. The more granular you get, the better. Believe me, guys, I know that you're going to say, Joe, I am not doing all this shit just to potentially get rejected by a company. And I'm going to say, well, sorry for you. Do this. If you want to stand out, if you really want to break in, this is only a small piece of the amount of work that it takes. But it takes this extra effort, guys, that makes people from being the middle of the pack to standing out. Start tracking this. Be a stats psychopath. Track all this information, because then you could look back. You could start tracking during the interview process. What are the objections you're getting? And then show them how you handled those objections. Talk about that. Well, this is one of the things that I was tracking in my CRM that I created, is that I was constantly getting that I don't have enough experience, or that I don't have sales experience. I don't have any clinical background or whatever. And then show how you provided some solutions, how you handled those objections. This is exactly what you do in medical sales. The more that you show them that I can do the job, right? Not saying it. Don't talk about it. Don't give the adjectives. We talk about this every week. The more adjectives you're getting, I'm a hard worker, I have a lot of grit, I'm really organized. Okay, show me you're organized. Show me you're a hard worker. When you show me an Excel spreadsheet with all that information that you've been tracking already, now it's, no, I'm a hard worker because I've done X, Y, and Z. I'm organized. And here's an exact example of how organized I am just through the interview process. This is the effort I put in. Guys, it's going to blow their minds. So don't just say things. Show me. Show me. Don't tell me. If you're going to tell me, you better give me the support. And that's what this is going to show. Excuse me. And again, you're mapping your stakeholders, because everything you're doing during this is exactly what you would do during, the CRM for an office. So for instance, if we're calling on a hospital, like I said before, there's going to be multiple stakeholders. There's going to be nurses, doctors, OR personnel, techs, biomed, admin, VP, SEO, CEO, CFO, all those individuals we mentioned before. Now you have the same thing during the interview process. You have your HR personnel. You got the recruiter. You got the hiring manager. You got the reps. You got the VP. You got all these individuals that you want to show in this little spreadsheet that you're making. It's showing them not just by writing names down, guys, and doing busy work, because this is the effort that you would take in this role. Letting them know, I understand what it takes. Here's what I'm doing here. And that's what I would bring to the table, when I take over a territory. So powerful, guys. Excuse me. So here's just a typical good response, to impress those hiring managers. I've been tracking our discussions like I would manage a territory. Based on our discussions, I've understand the key priorities are X, Y, and Z. Here's how I'd approach them. Okay. So that's so powerful, guys. It's showing that strategic thinking. It's showing that sales process mindset, the organization, the ownership, and the serious intent that you have to really take over this challenge or this whatever the initiative is. You're showing all that just by putting this all together in a spreadsheet. Excuse me. So what do you do now after the interview? Okay. So you're summing up, because you want to send it in a more advanced type of approach than the typical thank you. Okay. You want to summarize what was talked about. You want to summarize the understanding of the territory and then come up with a plan for that territory in that response. So a lot of you that are developing these business plans, which we always push for at the RepPath Academy, we don't just want conversation. Develop those business plans and then incorporate them into that response. This is all part of the CRM. This is all part of the organization. So after you're having these discussions, after you're having these interviews and you're learning more, you're putting this all into a game plan. Excuse me. Not only speaking to the other reps, but also when you're speaking to the individuals throughout the interview process. Excuse me. Thank you. So you have an understanding of what you're really going up against in this territory and what your approach is. So you want to be sending that as part of your thank you. And we could talk about this, whatever your specific challenges are, shoot me a DM and I can help you work through that. So it also is the CRM is a reflection of your identity. Okay. Average reps, they update CRM because their manager wants them to. And that's a fact. I've been one of those reps, and I didn't start learning this until after I was a couple years into my career, where I realized how valuable this is, and I also was that person that I didn't shy away from it. I wanted to get promoted. I wanted to move to higher roles. So I tried to do everything where I knew, because I had a good mentor when I was starting that taught me a lot of these things too, where it's not just about your numbers. Of course, numbers are when your numbers are great, odds are you're not going to get any shit from your manager. You're going to get the bonuses, you're going to get the commission checks. That's all phenomenal. But if you really want to get promoted, you need to go the next step, and you have to be doing these things. So you don't do it just because your manager wants you to. If they ask you that, so, well, I just do it because my manager tells me to. Guys, bad answer. That's a wrong mentality. That's an average rep mentality. If you want to move to a higher caliber rep, the CRM is how I control my business. Okay. That's great. But the elite reps look at it as, excuse me. If you take that mentality of a top rep and apply it to the interview process, because this helps you manage your job search like it's a pipeline. Okay. Just like your pipeline, you want to make sure that that's how you're tracking all this information, because your pipeline is how you control your business in medical sales. Same exact process, always showing the connections and how the two correlate and how they go hand in hand. That's what's really going to impress these guys. So you got to be able to show that during this process. Here's some of the mistakes that candidates make. They are constantly, and this is why it's important to have an updated CRM. For instance, some of the answers you give, some of the questions you give, or that the objections you're giving and the answers you give. So a lot of times, guys, during the process, did you repeat the same answer every time? Now, you might not think that's a big deal, but there's sometimes where a hiring manager is speaking to you, and then the next call, the hiring manager is there with another hiring manager. So he's already listened to your little, your pitch. Now, if you're giving the same exact answers to the same questions, it's going to raise a red flag. Now, if there's another interview with their VP, and now you're giving the same answers again, okay, it's going to be a major red flag. Then they're going to think you really don't have that much experience. You just have a script memorized. But if you have this in your CRM, tracking what you're saying too, I'm not saying write War and Peace, but just quick bullets of what story you talked about, handling. I got the question about how to convert a challenging doctor to use our product. And then you make a note, Dr. Smith, Robert Wood Johnson, whatever procedures, and you put a XYZ procedure down, and you at least have the bullets for that story. But if I'm not putting that down, I'm going to forget. I'm going to keep repeating the same things. You're going to go in your comfort zone and give the same answers. You don't want to do that, guys. So the more you track this, the more you track your answers, the better it's going to show throughout this process. It also shows structure. If you have that, again, there's a difference between I'm organized and I'm organized. Let me show you. That's so much more powerful, guys. So a lot of them that come whenever you say, what's your plan? What's your strategy? What's your approach? Some people just start, flying by the seat of their pants instead of actually having the data in front of them. Here's exactly how I would approach this, just like I did. Here's how I approached my interview process. I was focusing on these top 5 companies, and here's where I'm at in the process, where I've interviewed with 4 out of 5. I'm in a second interview with 2 of them and a final interview with 1. Some of the key objections I'm getting are blah, blah, blah. To get these 5 interviews, I had to speak to 23 different reps, and it shows this is what you're doing in the field. You don't just say, oh, I hit my number and I hit 120% because I'm a great rep and I provide great customer service and I'm really organized. Like, no, here's how I do this. I approach these top hospitals. I got 3 out of the top, 7 hospitals that all use our product. They're using us 60% of the time. I'm trying to grow to 80% by getting them to utilize this procedure, that procedure, by getting Dr. So-and-so and this doctor. I already have these group of individuals that are currently using versus these that I'm trying to get. And you have that all organized down in a plan, which you would typically use your CRM to do. Now you're creating your own CRM in the interview process and showing all this. Again, I will guarantee you that's going to help you in the process. I'm not going to say you're going to get a job just because of that, but you're going to be one of the finalists, because no one does this, guys. We always talk about standing out, and you always think of like, what's the crazy thing that you have to do? Or you think, oh, I don't have sales experience, so how can I stand out? I'm going against guys with 5-10 years experience. Believe me, do this today. This is something you can do. Start working on it and get the information into that spreadsheet and start showing it in these interviews, and you're going to stand out. But I'm going to shut up for a sec. We're a little over halfway through. James, any questions, buddy?
Yeah, we got a ton of questions, Joe. We got a ton of questions. Sarah J 2891. Wait, so I need to know about CRM before I even get hired? I'm just starting to apply for med sales jobs, and this is making me nervous. LOL.
Well, I'm not trying to make you nervous, but I'm glad that it is. You're not supposed to make you nervous. It's supposed to make you realize what you're up against and have an understanding of what you're getting into. Okay. It's not here to make you nervous. Excuse me. Just start tracking this information. Start putting this together. You don't have to do this all 10 minutes after this call, but this is where I want you to start thinking. Start putting down this Excel spreadsheet and start tracking what's happening throughout the process. Be more organized. If someone asks you how many companies, who you're interviewing with, how many companies have you applied, how many jobs have you applied to, you should know. Because if you can't remember if you applied to so many, that's a red flag too. That's called spray and pray. Spray and pray doesn't work. It's less is more, but you got to be tenacious and putting the effort in with those 5 to 10 companies or however many you're applying to. You're not just applying and not reaching out to reps. You got to constantly reach out to reps. You got to constantly get more information to build a business plan, to show yourself as a solution in whatever you're going for. So yeah, I mentioned all this. Again, it's not to scare you, but it's to show you that there are reps doing this. Okay. There's few and far between, but the ones that put that effort in, they're the ones that stand out. So you got to just get, it's a wake up call. If you're not doing any of it, or if this seems like, wow, it's way too much work and it's not for me, then I got to be honest, maybe this isn't for you. It's not supposed to be for everyone. We have candidates that try to get into the academy. If they tell me, well, Joe, I'm just looking into it. It's one of the careers that, I'm interested in, but I'm looking at a few different things. They're not getting in the academy. We'll straight up tell them that you're not a fit. We want individuals 100%. This is what I want to do. I will do whatever it takes. That's the mentality you got to have, guys. You don't have to have, like, I'm not sitting here saying that everyone should have that mentality about medical sales. No, if it's not for you, it's not for you. Or if you're still wishy-washy, you're still figuring it out. I get it, but just don't be shocked when you're not moving ahead, because there's a line of people that really want this and they're willing to do whatever it takes. So if you feel it's too much, you might have to rethink this. But if you say, Joe, thank you. I know it's a lot, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to keep working at it. That's the attitude you need to have, because I'm telling you guys, your competition is going to be doing this and you're going to fall behind. So you got to make sure that you're willing to put this work in. Excuse me.
We got Fitness Junkie Mike. Joe, quick question. Is Salesforce the only CRM I should learn, or is there others med sales company use?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot out there. I mean, for me, I'm trying to think. I mean, some people even use like QuickBooks, Hotspot, HubSpot. What are the other ones? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter if you use a high-priced, outstanding CRM like Salesforce, or if you put it into an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, when I started RepPath, I laugh at looking at my original Excel spreadsheet with the candidates, with some of their needs, and all their background information, what their experiences were. I mean, I had this long list that it's funny now, but I was still trying to get organized. I was trying to have some sort of database. Like, you just can't start a company and then go out and buy Salesforce. I mean, most people, they don't have the money to do that, and there's no reason to. You got to build a database first of information, before you get to that level. But the simplest thing is learn how to use Excel. Most of you should know this by now. If not, work with ChatGPT. It'll walk you through it. I mean, you could do anything on ChatGPT, as we know, utilize that, but put something together in Salesforce. That could be your CRM. There's not a company out there that's going to go, oh, wow, you're only using you're only using Excel as your CRM. No, they're going to be impressed that you're doing whatever it takes to put your thoughts together. So it doesn't matter. You just focus on being organized and getting it down on paper. That's essentially what a CRM is.
We got Jake Manuel. What's the number one thing to be proactive and get more interviews?
The number one thing to be proactive? Well, first off, you got to apply to companies that you're qualified for. So when you're reading the actual requirements, you want to make sure that you're meeting at least 50% of those requirements at the bare minimum. Okay. And then when you see that you're meeting at least half of them, when you send your resume to that recruiter or whoever you're sending it to, cut and paste the requirements and then bullet point underneath each requirement why you're a fit. Okay. Do not fill it in with, while I don't have this experience, I make it up for it in grit, blah, 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 adjective, bullshit, nonsense. No one's going to read that. They're going to just cross it off. So you want to make sure that you're an actual fit. It's okay to have your reaches here and there, but if you want to constantly get ghosted or rejected, don't keep applying to jobs that you're not a fit for. So that's number one. Number two, which I shouldn't even say two, this is done simultaneously, is you're reaching out to reps at that company in that specific division that know that hiring manager, that can give you the information that we always talk about that you can't get from ChatGPT or Google, and build that business plan. Get that information that is helping you become, that you can actually use in an actionable way for that specific territory, and put that together. That's going to knock their socks off. But if you're doing both of those things at once, you're going to be a step ahead. And I know Jake personally. He's in the academy. Jake does an amazing job. He's getting interviews. He's really going out there and doing a great job. So keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing a great job, buddy.
We have, where did it go? Here we go. Jim Bro Steve 17. Joe, I've been applying for 3 months and nobody told me CRM was this important. Should I be putting this on my resume somehow?
You could put down some of your familiarity if you have with a specific CRM. That can't hurt. If you're proficient in Salesforce, then put that down. But the fact that no one told you about this, that's okay. Now you know today. So the whole point is, what do you do moving forward? And that's it. It's start to put these together in a spreadsheet of some sort. Start tracking something. The interview process is the easiest thing because it's the most relatable. If you're in this process of trying to find a job, then you got to treat it like a sales call. You got to treat it like a sales strategy. And when you could be able to show that and then relay that message and show that to the hiring manager, it's going to really impress them. So just start putting that together today. If you've already worked with a CRM in the past, get that on your resume. But more importantly, it's start tracking this process now.
We have, where'd it go? Daniel, there it is. Lisa Cardino. First time watching, do med device companies expect you to already know their specific CRM, or do they train you?
They're always going to train you. It depends on the size of the company. Let me take a step back. If it's a small company, and this is where guys during the interview process, you don't want to be, if you're going to bullshit your way and say that you really know about a CRM that they're using, you're playing with fire. Okay. Because you could get that job and they could say you're proficient in CRM and then not train you. All right. Now you're going to be in a tough spot because they can ask for a report or something right away. You don't even know how to do it. So that's going to be a problem. So just be honest. But 99% of the time, they're going to train you on whatever product it is. Because even if you know Salesforce, they can have it set up with different filters and different information that someone's going to have to show you how to do that. Normally during training for most companies, they're going to teach you. So I wouldn't panic about not knowing how to do it. Most reps, they get trained on it. And if you're utilizing it, then you're going to become really proficient at it. But you're going to get good at it if you utilize it. But most of them are going to train you anyway.
We have Jessica 62. Yes, this topic. My manager is constantly on me about updating my CRM, and honestly, I fall behind sometimes. Do you have any tips for staying consistent?
Yeah. Start doing it from jump. If you're not, for instance, if you're calling on Dr. Jones and you've been calling on Dr. Jones for 6 months, or you already had a couple of calls with him and you didn't update it, start updating it now. Start working on it now, today. Today's President's Day. I know a lot of people, some people are off, some aren't. But when you get done today, if you're working, start doing it. Just start getting organized. Because when you get in a good habit, that's going to break the bad habits that you've been in of not entering stuff in. So just start entering it in today. And then after each call, make that the process. Don't get in the car. And I did this, guys. I was the king of getting in my car and going right to the next account. I was like, I don't have time for this shit. I'll put it all in tonight. And I went right to the next account. Some of the managers that I had, especially when I started, amazing managers. I remember my one manager, Mark, handed me my computer every time because he knew I was just couldn't wait to get to the next account. And just say, Joe, just be patient. Let's talk about it. Let's think about what they mentioned in the call. Let's get that entered in. And he was right, because a lot of times when I entered in at the end of the day, I missed things. But when you do it right after, it takes, guys, it could take a couple minutes, so get that information in, get the real information. Don't just constantly put bullshit, because I did it. I talked about this study or this paper, and it's just all nonsense. You're just making stuff up to be real in your notes, because it's going to help you moving forward. But start today, do it today, and get in those good habits. And then I'm telling you guys, within a month or two, you're going to be in such a rhythm, and you're going to thank me, because you're going to say, wow, look at all this information I have. I wouldn't have entered all this stuff in, but it's making me a much more organized and better sales rep.
I got Mike Tyler. How do you handle reps who are great at sales but terrible at CRM hygiene? It's my biggest frustration right now.
You sound like you're a manager, Mike. And yeah, it is frustrating, but, from a management point of view, you got to get everyone on the same page, and I know that's one of the toughest things in management. You got guys that are amazing at it. You got guys that never even open their computer up. I've been there, and I've been on both sides, but you got to make sure that everyone is on the same page. You got to have your non-negotiables, just because someone's a great rep, you feel a lot of times as a manager, like, well, the guy's doing great or she's doing great. I don't want to screw up her routine, because at the end of the day, she makes the company money and, is a high performer. No, you could still do more, there's never been a rep that by being more organized in their CRM that ruined their sales abilities or made their numbers drop. So they could do both, but you got to set the expectations and get everyone on the same page with non-negotiables. Do they have to enter all their calls in that day, or do they have to have them in by the end of the week? I mean, it depends. This happens a lot with expense reporting. When you're a manager, you got reps that every week, I wanted my expenses in by Thursday night so I could get them submitted by Friday. A lot of reps, again, you're chasing after them. Some reps, they do it once a month, and you have to approve this long ass expense report. So you got to get everyone on the same page and have your list of non-negotiables and make sure that they're following up, because that's a job of a manager. But you can't have people doing all different things, entering in different information. Show examples and have the expectations of what needs to be entered and make sure everyone is doing that.
I got AJ Ferrigno. What's your opinion on adding personal details about your contacts in CRM, kids' names, hobbies, etc., versus keeping it strictly professional?
Well, I think you could still mention that stuff. It's still professional. To say that, Judy, the receptionist, has two kids, Brian and Jill, and Jill is in gymnastics and Brian plays baseball. I mean, why is that not professional? To me, that's professional, because a lot of those times, I mean, one of the things, guys, when you'll notice when you're speaking with doctors or staff, everybody likes to talk about their kids. I don't care how miserable the doctor, how intimidating. It's very rare that you could talk about someone's kids, but like, oh, by the way, how did Brian do in that tournament? The fact that you remembered that, guys, trust me. I mean, when people talk to you about your kids or about your family, and they say, by the way, how's your mom doing? I know she had that procedure last month, or, I know your daughter was, was one of the tops in the class. Did she end up becoming the valedictorian or what? Little notes like that, they're so helpful. So don't think just because it's a personal thing. And again, you're not going to get so personal to talk about people's health problems and their stuff that is like HIPAA compliant. But to mention that they have a son named Brian who plays baseball, it's only going to help you when you go in there, because you want to review that before you're walking in. I'm telling you, if you're doing that and you're getting that habit every time, something is going to be remembered because you took the 2 minutes to review before you walked in. That's going to help you in the sales process.
We have Jay Beyonde. What kind of reporting capabilities are most important in medical sales CRM?
What kind of reporting capabilities? I mean, again, it could be everything from tracking the usage that doctor is using, depending on, if it's a pharmaceutical drug, are there medical device instruments that they're using? Are there types of procedures? But it really depends on how deep that company goes. But just to simplify, we'll stick with the typical pharma CRM. You're going to have the list of all the doctors in your database. You're going to have it broken down by specialty. You'll have the script data. How many, is this the first time they're using is this a new script, meaning a new patient, or a TRX, a total scripts of all the patients? And a lot of times new scripts are even more important. That means that a doctor gets a patient on a new drug. Now that patient should be on them month after month. But if you have a doctor that is still your top doctor, but is one of the lowest in new scripts, that's a red flag. Why isn't he getting new patients on it? This is some of the information that if you're analyzing it correctly, you could go in there with a different approach. For instance, when I sold Avinza, which is a pain medication, I was always looking at doctors because we always compete against OxyContin. Who are the top OxyContin doctors? And this is how I used my CRM incorrectly. And I started always approaching those top doctors and I wasn't getting anywhere. And the reason being, because Avinza was a new product. It was, you needed someone that was more of an early adopter that's willing to try new products. So until I had one of my mentors say to me, Joe, focus on doctors that are using Duragesic. And Duragesic was a pain patch. So if they're willing to do that, they're willing to try out new products. And it literally just that simple piece of advice, I changed my approach. And those were my top targets. And that's how I utilize my CRM. Whenever I saw a doctor using more Duragesic, I was like, oh man, that's prime. Got right in there. And they were more willing to listen to you. So that's a way of analyzing the data to be able to, to get further. But again, there's so much, the information is endless in there, depending on how much information you put in. That's the key message is what you put in is what you get out of it. But your company should have all that other information, about products used and, the competition, but you got to use it correctly if you want to be effective.
We have Linked is a legend. Missed the first 20 minutes, but this is already super helpful. Do you recommend any specific online courses?
Yeah.
I already know where Joe's going with this.
It's an easy one. RepPath Academy. That's simple. We teach all this. We're going to go through all this. We're teaching everything from interview prep to resume optimization, LinkedIn optimization, networking. We have many, many modules. You're going to work with our staff. You're going to work with our coaches. You're going to be a part of the RepPath community, and we're going to stick with you until you get a job. No one else is going to offer all that, guys. We have a lifetime of experience. I didn't just create this yesterday. I've been in the industry for almost 25 years, from every position, from rep up to owner, from every field, from pharma, device, capital equipment, diagnostics. I've done all this. So I'm not going to just tell you something that I haven't done. We have a proven system to help thousands of candidates break in. Get on the RepPath Academy. You can either go on my website, reppath.com, or shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, joe@reppath.com, and we could get you signed up and started right away and then help you hit your goals. But RepPath Academy by far is the number one resource that I would use right now.
I got Connie Mac 22. How do I even practice using a CRM if I'm not in sales yet?
Just like I said, Connie, get an Excel spreadsheet and start tracking the interviews that you're going on. Start today. You could start reaching out I reached out to 5 companies today. Track it. How many responses did you get? Did you just send emails? Did you send a LinkedIn message? Who were the individuals you reached out to? What were their titles? What were their positions? Get all that information in there. The more information, the better, and then just get in the daily routine of doing that. And it doesn't matter about your previous experiences. You could start with that today. And it doesn't matter what job you're at. You could be unemployed. You're still tracking your process. You're thinking like a sales rep does. You're thinking like a medical sales rep. That's what they do. The top reps are doing this. So show them that you can do this, and they're going to start thinking. You're going to start thinking like a top rep. It's going to be, again, it's not, oh, I can do the job, or I'm really good, I'm really organized. You're showing them that you can do it. They're going to be more inclined to want you for that role, as opposed to someone that, could have sales experience, but isn't even showing any of this organization, isn't showing that they can do all this. Because this happens a lot, guys. They could be a great sales rep. They get started your company, and it could be a nightmare for you. So you're always a risk. Remember this, guys. We're all risks when we're applying to jobs. It doesn't matter if you're me with 25 years or someone with 25 minutes or no experience in the industry. The more that you can show them that I could do the job, and by providing examples like this, real concrete examples, you're going to reduce that risk. And so everyone is a risk. Doesn't matter who you are. The more that you do shows that you could reduce that risk to be a better sales candidate and get the opportunity. James, we might have time for one more, only because I just have to jump off because I have a hard stop. So if we could just do one more question.
Yeah. I got one more. Navy Tyler JT. Left the military 6 months ago. We used some database systems, but nothing called CRM. Will hiring managers understand that, or should I explain it differently?
They'll understand by just when you explain it. It doesn't matter what you put down in your resume. It's not going to make them go, oh, I'm definitely not going to interview him because I don't know what that is. You could just put down in your resume, CRM proficient in blah, 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 whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if you could show them that you have a system in place for your role, whatever it was, and this is the approach you took, and you work that pipeline, you work those customers, and you have a way to storing all that information and following up with it. That's the importance, guys. So if you can verbalize that in the interview and show it, bringing in an example of how you work that process, that is key. So it doesn't matter if they're unfamiliar with the actual CRM, just show them and talk about how you did that, how you utilized it. That's the important thing.
Well, that's it today, Joe.
Thank you, man. Great.
Of course.
Great questions, guys. Thank you again, James. And sorry I had to throw in that Belichick example, but I did that on purpose.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
You handled it well.
At least my quarterback doesn't wear nail polish.
So what? Hey, he's better than your quarterbacks or whoever the hell is back there. So you would take him in a second if we traded him to you. So anyway, but thank you again, guys. Today was a great call, great participation. So I always appreciate that. Guys, again, RepPath Academy, I've said it a million times, reach out. We can help you get in there. If any of you are lobby members and you're looking to get additional discounts, please put in the promo code Licata. You can see it right there on the screen, and that'll enable you to get more discounts. If I don't talk to any of you guys, have a great week. And again, we'll be here every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I'll see you this Wednesday, guys. Thank you and take care.